All right, well then we will go ahead and call the March 14th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alleman is absent. Commissioner Stover?
Present.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Present.
Vice Chair Nindell?
Present.
And Chairman Voss.
Present.
Thank you.
Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Stover, would you like to lead us in the pledge? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, has everybody had a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Are there any changes, amendments, recommendations, suggestions by staff before we? None? See none, then we'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
Second.
All right, do you have, are we using this thing? Okay. Okay, I think I may need to,
Okay, this is new.
okay. Oh, here we go. Mine just came up. Okay,
Mine worked.
all right. Yours come up, Jim? No? Okay, so we still need,
You could just do a voice vote for Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Vice Chair Nindell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
all right. All right. Next item is minutes of the February 14th meeting. If there's nothing that anybody wants to discuss on that, then we'll take a motion to approve those.
I move we approve the minutes from the last meeting
All right,
as
good.
they stand.
Okay, got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second. Do you want to do roll call or do you want to do the online thing?
We could do a voice vote. I'm sorry, who's the seconder? Thank you. Commissioner Wagstaff
Yes.
and Vice Chair Nindell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Perfect. All right, next item, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
All righty then. We will then move on to our public hearing. First item is amendments to the housing element for the sixth cycle of 2021-2029. Community Development Director Clark, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To present this item, I'd like to call Nicole Christ. Nicole is with Terra Nova. They are a consultant for the housing element.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we have been assisting the city in preparing the housing element. This has been a lengthy process, as you're aware. The housing element for this cycle started in 2021 when the city prepared and submitted to the Department of Housing and Community Development a draft document, because the housing element is the only element that requires state review and approval in our general plan. We worked back and forth with them to achieve an element that was complete. And in October of last year, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council. And on November 1st, the City Council adopted the housing element, and it was sent back to HCD for final certification. In January, while I was speaking with HCD staff as they were reviewing the final document, They asked about our sites inventory, and we found that there was an error in the element that stated that we had listed our sites inventory locations in 2 prior housing elements. That would have required the rezoning text amendments that are included in Program 1.2. We realized, however, that because the city had been on a short cycle because of previous non-compliance, that the sites have only been on that inventory for 1 planning cycle, and therefore Program 1.2 is not necessary. We made the text correction with HCD, and they provided us a certification letter and indicated that with the corrected language, Program 1.2 was no longer necessary, and the rezoning therefore did not need to be completed. So this evening, we are bringing back a cleanup item to correct the language and to eliminate Program 1.2 in its entirety, because it is no longer required for us to be in compliance with state law. The recommendation this evening is pretty straightforward. The CEQA review has been completed for the housing element. The exemption still stands because the changes that are proposed are minor and do not change the findings for the exemption. And staff also requests that you recommend to the City Council that they adopt the revision, and that will complete our process and will be good until 2029. And, well, I should always knock on wood when I say that. And that concludes my staff report, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right. Was there any additional comments from staff? Very good.
No, sir.
Nothing to that. All right, so then we'll entertain any questions of staff from commissioners. Is there any? None? Yes, we do. Okay.
As usual, I have questions. I read through the report, and I want to thank you for a very thorough and thoughtful report. I didn't go back and check through any of the statistics or, go for punctuation or anything like that, but on the second reading, I did come up with a couple of questions that I'd love to just clarify. One of the things I didn't understand with the housing element, does the number of dwelling units take into account our water table and what our water table will support over the next 100 years?
No.
Okay.
HCD does not factor environmental factors into the allocation of RENA.
Okay. That answers that. Okay. And does this provision clear the way for employee housing on campus facilities like, for example, the Coachella campus, which is a new sort of a vertical integration of different kinds of work and agricultural work that might be transitory, might require housing. Does this clear the way for housing in those kinds of developments for a more vertical integration so that people can live and walk to their work?
In our mixed-use zones, we do provide for all types of housing as well as commercial development. Employee housing is covered by new law in the state, and we did add references and provisions for employee housing. The Coachella site, I can't tell you, ma'am, if it's
Well, not that
properly zoned,
specifically, but
in general, yes, employee housing is encouraged by the state, and we've included it in our housing element.
okay, very good. And I think that'll do. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is our code compliance integrated involved in this at all? Or is that kind of just a side thing, or do they help with the maintenance of the housing stock, or is that kind of a thing where in order to keep that up, that's part of their program as well?
Yeah, obviously, and actually, when I get to the annual report,
Okay,
within one of our programs is targeted specifically towards housing maintenance,
perfect.
and that's where code compliance comes
Okay,
in.
okay.
Not so much the housing element, but on the programs that we set up to enforce the element.
All right. Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and we'll open the public hearing. Did we, Mr. City Clerk, do we have any?
I don't have any speaker cards on this item.
Okay, so no testimony from opposed or there. All right, then we will close the public hearing. Any additional comments from commissioners? Otherwise, we will take a motion in a second for this agenda item. No question? All right. Who wants to do the motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission to recommend to the City Council to find the city's previous determination that the project, the housing element of the sixth cycle, is exempt from the California Environmental Qualities Act stands because the amendment will not change the reasons for exemption, and adopt the amendments to the housing element for the sixth cycle 2021 through 2029.
Okay. Got the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. And let's do the vote. There we go.
Commissioner Wagstaff? It's your void. Aye. Yes.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Nindell.
Yes, aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you, staff. Thank you for your help with this. Next item is our administrative calendar. 2022 Housing Element Annual Progress Report. Mr. Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Very closely related to our housing element is the annual report on progress. So each year, communities throughout California are required to submit to HCD an annual progress report on the housing element. As Nicole mentioned, our current planning cycle runs from 2021 to 2029. Within the report is a very detailed spreadsheet where we list all the numbers for new construction in the categories of entitled, permitted, and completed housing units. And that's all types of housing units, whether it's single family or duplexes, multifamily, et cetera. As well as our progress on the program implementation. We also submit data on the income status for the units, very low, moderate, and above moderate. So the numbers for this year are actually pretty good. We had 107 that were entitled, 175 that were permitted, and that's what HCD measures you on, is the permitted number of units. And then 122 that were completed. So in our language, that means they've got their final inspection. Just kind of by way of reference, to meet the RENA allocation targets, the city would need to permit on average 484 dwelling units per year. So quite a delta, but the targets are always set, pretty high. This is our RENA allocation, just to refresh your memory. It was in the housing element, but we have a total of 3,873 dwelling units that are part of our allocation for the full 8-year period, and then they're broken down into these different categories. So we have extremely low, 284, very low, 285, low 535, and moderate 688, above moderate 2,081. So, and I should note that these numbers in this cycle are actually lower than our allocation in the previous cycles. So kind of what happened is the state, when the Southern California Association of Governments, when divvying up the allocation, they've concentrated more towards sort of the high metro areas where you've got a lot of high quality transit connections, for the higher density housing. So our recommendation is to adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission to recommend that the City Council direct staff to submit the 2022 HCD Housing Element and Annual Progress Report. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I have Colleen here, who worked very hard on the spreadsheet, pulling together all the numbers, too.
All right, and thank you for doing that. I know I read those reports, so I know those can be quite tedious at times and not the funnest thing to do, but we appreciate it because we read it, right? All of us did?
Yeah.
Yes, we did. All right, great. So let's, any questions of staff from any commissioners on this?
Someone else go first.
You go ahead.
Okay, you guys, of course I have questions. It's my nature. But I'm just wondering, and we touched on this in the staff meeting, and I didn't find in the suggestions any kind of a policy per rent control or a vacancy tax or anything like that that might help to keep our low-resourced and extra low-resourced people in their homes. I know that that's not a part of this document, but I'm wondering how moving forward, if we might move forward with something like that to augment this policy.
Yeah, you're correct. It's not part of the program, which is taken from the housing element. It would be a city council policy decision to direct staff to look into those different programs to do that.
And again, I know we touched on it, but I just was wondering, also in this document, is there any prospect for using existing properties for transitional housing or single-room occupancy for our unhoused population, maybe tiny house developments? And are there any grants being pursued to that end?
Well, not specifically as part of this report,
Yes.
but the city is pursuing grants and specifically looking at grants for transitional housing. So there's a couple of programs out there. One's called Home Key and another one's called Room Key, depending on the size of the facility. But the city is pursuing that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Comment. Mr. Community Development Director, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the infill development.
Okay.
I was quite impressed with some of those numbers.
Sure. So one of the things the spreadsheet asks that you track with the permitted units is the number of infill units. And as you all know, there are a lot of vacant lots throughout the city. So this year, we were able to permit 53 infill housing units, which is a pretty good number to report up to the state. So slowly, some of these vacant lots are filling up with new houses.
Do we have kind of an incentive program for that we know of? I don't remember if building department or planning had anything for the infill. Does anybody know?
We don't, but there's kind of an advantage to building on a pre-existing lot, and that is you don't have to go through a large planning process
Right.
to build a new tract, including the environmental approvals and all of that. So,
Right, no, I'm familiar with that. Wasn't sure if we were doing something. Okay. And then this report comes back to us annually?
yeah, so next year, well, this will go to the city council, and then they will send it up to HCD. HCD will take the reports from all the communities in California, and they
Okay.
roll them up. But yes, we'll do this each year.
Okay, perfect. All right, if there's no other questions, then we'll go ahead and we'll open the public hearing. So we're doing that. Was there any, Mr. City Clerk, any testimony, comments, anything on this?
I don't have any speaker cards on this item.
Okay. So that next is that. Then I will close the public hearing. Any further discussion of commissioners? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution presented today.
I would move that we adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Desert Hot Springs, California, recommending the City Council to direct staff to submit the 2022 HCD Housing Element Annual Report and Progress Report.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Go ahead and vote, and if you can't do the computer, then Mr. City Clerk will handle the
Yes,
rest.
Commissioner Wagstaff
Aye.
and Vice Chair Nindell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you again for your efforts. Thank you, staff,
All right, thank you, sir.
and for the details of all that. Appreciate that. Let's see, the next item is public comments. Did anybody, none had slipped in there? Okay. Any planning commissioner reports, comments, anything? None? Madam, none?
Should I?
Well, I mean,
I think we need to paint the cross rocks all over the redevelopment area, the downtown redevelopment area, make sure those are all lined and safe so that our pedestrians can walk. But I'm just saying that because I almost got run over the other day.
well, we can always let the Public Works Director know that there was a comment on
Just a
that.
comment.
And then
That's my report.
Commissioner Wagstaff, you want to bring up your light? Now's the time. All right. Okay, I've seen none. Community Development Director and Planning Staff reports?
Just a brief report this evening, Mr. Chairman. As you are aware, we are going to start the Title 17 zoning code amendment process. Zoning code is a pretty hefty document with a lot of pages, so we're going to start with hopefully the easier ones, and that would be the chapters on landscaping, parking, and signs. The more lengthy one, it has to do with the land use, and that's going to take sort of more time to weave through. But if you have any suggestions on either of those three chapters, landscaping, parking, and signage, let us know now. If there's something in the past that hasn't worked or maybe was permitted and probably shouldn't been, but it was in the code, let us know now, and this is a chance to start cleaning that up.
Could you send those to us on an email where we could review those at home, and then we can send
Yep.
Either Colleen or Patricia, whichever you designate, any comments that might be said?
Yes.
So you get them promptly instead of at a meeting?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that commissioners get those to you. If there's no other comments or anything, I then believe that we are adjourned. Oh, wait,
There we go.
there we go. Thank you, everybody.
All right.